Dobrý večer, good evening. Just looking at the ratio here, the gender ratio, can relate the art and football or whatever. I think today England is playing football here. My name is Přemysl Pál, I'm the head of the Czech Center, and I'm really delighted to welcome you at the last, before the summer edition of the Women in Focus series. So as you know, because I see some familiar faces here, the Women in Focus series introduces inspiring female personalities and their accomplished professional journeys and aims to unveil through dialogue and open discussions intricacies of various fields. In the past, look at the architecture, for example, also sport, ballet, and today you're going to have a guest here from art. And I'm very delighted that this very special guest of this evening is a renowned artist, Míla Fürstová. So welcome. As Míla perhaps would not need an introduction to this audience, nevertheless, I like to state that she, as an artist, is the best known for her, in quotes, innovative etching technique artwork. In Míla's own work, I quote, "My work is an intimate portrayal of the human soul, explored through the medium of etching, expressed in a distinctly female voice." And I really like this quote, in particular the second part of that, which gives a very strong emphasis on the female perspective and influence on her artwork, which can be poetic, fragile, but at the same time, it's very strong and resilient. Míla is a graduate from the Charles University, but also from the Royal College of Art here in London, and she has exhibited over 20 solo exhibitions in many European countries as well as in the US. We at the Czech Center have been fortunate to host one of the Míla's exhibition, All the Rivers That Flow Through Me, which was about 2 years ago, which was quite very successful. I also like to mention Míla's latest exhibitions and quite extensive retrospective, which is currently on view in Czechia. Now we call it Czechia, not the Czech Republic, Czechia, in the city of Hradec Králové. So it's definitely not to be missed if you're going to be planning your travel plans for the summer. I also like to state that Míla is well sought after a book illustrator. She illustrated some of the most iconic Czech literary work like Babička, Kytice, and Maj. So just wrap it up, let me say that the evening will be divided in 3 parts. The first will be Míla's presentation and some opening remarks. The second will be a conversation with Jana Tilson, who is a kind of long friend, and they're sharing some of the similar histories together. And the third part will be, of course, the Q&A with you. So with that, I wish you have an enjoyable evening. And Míla, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I didn't know there was football on, and for all of those who sacrificed it, thank you. I really appreciate you making time. I would also love to take an opportunity and thank Przemek for everything he has done here for the Czech Center. He's been here for 4 years as the director, and I have been watching with real enthusiasm and pride how wonderful things he has brought in. This series of lectures, Women in Focus, is just one of them. And I know very well as an artist that when I'm drawing something, I really need to distribute my focus evenly in order to understand it, to comprehend it. And I'm so glad that as a society That's what we are doing now. We are catching up for the time that the focus wasn't on women. Women are getting, greater voice, and Przemek and his team are supporting that. So thank you so much, Przemku. And I have 30 minutes to give you a story of over 40 years, and I'm going to struggle, I think, with it. So I was actually thinking, can I abbreviate even the title of this narrative that I want to present to you? And I think that my journey really could be described as a love story. I was born in Czechoslovakia when it was still a communist country, and my family was harshly persecuted by the regime, but in their wisdom, they made it kind of their focus that my brother and I have a magical childhood, that we are surrounded by love, that our childhood is simple, that they support our dreams, and that we are brought up in a beautiful environment. So this house there, it's a house in Hořebník, my maternal grandmother's house, and this is where I started my life, and I lived there till I was 2 years of age. And after that, we moved to Hradec Králové, a beautiful city in eastern Bohemia, but we have never really left southern Bohemia, because every other weekend and all summers we would spend there. And there's these amazing forests and rivers. This is my daughter, it's not me, but basically she's repeating what I have been doing all my childhood. And I think these sort of settings really are a portrait of my soul. They really define me as a person and as an artist. Oh, I think we missed one slide. Okay, never mind, I'll stay here. When I was in Hradec Králové, I had an opportunity to start attending art classes from a very early age. There was a wonderful thing at the Czech Republic then that kind of some people would come to nursery schools, and they would seek talent at very, very young children. And I was actually selected for 2 things. One of them was ballet, and the other one was art. And very swiftly, I started the lessons. And during the ballet lessons, I really missed my mum. And during art lessons, I'd forgotten my mum. And I was just in my element. I was so immersed in the world of creativity. And I think in a way, I haven't changed since that. It's, when I create, I forget the world around me. When I was 14, I thought a miracle happened, because I was accepted at the School of Applied Arts in Prague. There was just few places for the whole country, and I was awarded one, and I was on my way to Prague. I was 14, and it meant a huge change. I had to start boarding. Although the boarding in Czech Republic at the time, it wasn't quite so severe. Sometimes in England it would just be during the week from Monday to Friday, and then every weekend I would go back to my parents. But still, huge change. I remember very distinctly the times that my mum would bake cakes whole weekend to prepare, just fill my bag to brim as if Prague was area of famine. I think some of you who are Czech here recognize that sort of love, articulated through food. So it's a strong memory. Another very strong memory is my lovely father always driving me to the train station in Hradec Králové and standing at the platform till my train disappears with a sign like that. You will win, you will be okay, my daughter. So I really carried that inside me. Now, it was 1989, the time, and it was obviously very important for me personally, but it was also great a time of change for the whole country, the time of Velvet Revolution. So from young girl with a bag full of cakes, within a few weeks I was a revolutionary, and I was there amidst of it all. And I could really speak about it for a long time, but we don't have the time, so I just want to mention one little episode. I remember very clearly the deputy head of the School of Applied Arts with her arms stretched across the gate of the school, with tears in her eyes, pleading, "My dear children, don't go out, they will shoot you. Because obviously at the very beginning of the revolution we didn't know what turn it would take. So we listened for about 5 minutes and then we did go out and rattled our keys and demonstrated. It was also a very important time for me, and I don't have many slides to start with, but this is the first one. It's a live drawing. That time at the School of Applied Art was very important for me as well, because I met a wonderful professor called Milan Martiník. He is a sculptor and ceramicist. He taught there, and he took it upon himself that he will prepare us, his class of 9 young artists, to really be proper artists. And his way of going about it was to get us to draw, but to draw properly, to draw every day, you know, an hour or 2 every day. And some sort of cooler fellow students were sort of a bit protesting, but those of you who know me, I've never been cool and never will be. And I just really loved it. I just loved that as a challenge. And I would draw every day. And that is, you know, when I talk about my story being a love story, this is a kind of big strand of love coming into the story, because I was really falling in love with drawing, with looking in the world. And, you know, I was feeling that when I draw, I touch the world with a kind of the greatest tenderness. I really learn about what I draw. And the other aspect, of course, that there was something kind of developing under my hands. So I really, really love that. And moving forward very quickly, next 4 years in Prague were just fantastic. I thought, you know, I'm an artist through in and throughout. And I really thought that I could continue studying art at one of the 2 main Prague universities. I applied for both of them and was rejected. And this is when my world kind of fell apart. I think, you know, from my perspective now, you know, I know that, you know, something somewhere like Prague Academy of Art, you know, it's a very renowned institution, but it's still only an institution. And when you have a flame inside you, you kind of need to nourish it irrelevant of an institution. But I didn't know that then. And I remember walking in the streets of Prague, just crying, just really, really lost. And then I thought, at least I want to stay a student. I need to find another degree that would at least have some element of art. And I applied to Charles University to study art in combination in English, which was very ambitious of me, because up till then we were really just learning Russian. My English was so poor. And I was lucky because I got the highest amount of points from my art exam, but with the English they just thought, honestly, they just haven't seen anything like it. I think I had 0, literally 0. Then there was a negotiation between 2 departments, and then the persuasive art professors, they persuaded for me to get another chance, and I was invited to oral exam in English. So there was art professors, English professors, and one of the native speakers asked me about Hemingway. And there was I with my absolute kind of top English, sort of thinking of this profound thing that I can say. And I said, Hemingway loved life. And he was looking at me, and there was silence. And then he said, is that why he shot himself? So I thought, okay, that this is the end. Not only I'm not going to be an artist, I'm not even going to be a student. This is the end. I started crying. He passed me his handkerchief. I blew my nose into it, returned it, said goodbye, and I thought this is the end. And miraculously, again, in a few weeks' time, obviously very keen to learn more about Hemingway, they accepted me. So I started studying art and English at the Charles University in Prague. But that September is when the real hardship started for me, because all my lectures from that side, from the English part, were in English. We started with Chaucer. I was recording everything. At night I spent several hours translating it. writing it down, trying to learn English that way. So it was really, really hard, and this is where my journey to England starts. I decided I have to come here, learn English from the native speakers, and I organized for myself to be an au pair for a couple of months. And just before leaving Prague, I met this wonderful young Englishman, really great guy, and I met him later in England again, and I fell in love. And once again, I have just made total life decision based on, being in love. I thought, eventually I want to come to England, I want to study art, and he did help me to find a course. I applied at the university, it was at the University of Gloucestershire, and I started studying printmaking there. Now this is probably quite a good moment to tell you about the process. So I applied for studying printmaking because I always thought that it's kind of more interesting than painting. In a way, it is, to me personally, it is a dialogue. With painting, I feel that you have to be in this almost godlike position where you conceive of a piece of art, you deliver it, and with etching, which I loved, you go through this very, very strenuous, long process, and the process always answers back to you. So here a little bit, this is one of my first etchings, and I think in reality it's probably 3 times as big as this, and this is how you make etching. This is a metal plate, zinc. I heat it up, and I roll hot wax on it, a thin layer. It's about this sort of brown shade. Then I turn it around like that, and I smoke underneath with a candle, like this, like that. And when it's prepared, I take a needle and just scratch into it, a bit more carefully than this. And I would make a drawing that lasts, it would take me weeks, sometimes even months if the drawing is more complex. And that's how I prepare the plate to be etched. Then when the drawing is finished, the whole plate gets submerged into acid, and acid attacks all the exposed area of the plate. So after that, I take it out, wash it with water and with white spirits, and I'm left with a plate a bit like this. I don't know what you can see. I can later on I'll leave it here. It's got sort of image on it. So it all is kind of grooves into which I can then push different colored inks into different areas, and then I print on that paper. So it's a very, very long process. But again, as I said, a process that always surprises you, and I find the element of surprise really kind of wonderful thing creatively, that I like to create work in a way that I don't know where I'm going, a little bit like going on a journey. I think I like the surprises and then responding to them creatively, intellectually. So another etching from my BA. An interesting thing happened when I was studying when I started studying at the University of Gloucestershire in Cheltenham. As I said, I was there for 1 year. At that time, I negotiated with my Prague university that I can continue to full-time university degrees together. So I was just flying between Prague and England, taking my exams in Prague. And honestly, I have to say that I was just finding it so much easier to study the 2 courses, because suddenly, my hands were dirty. I was so happy that English was kind of coming in a much more natural way. So that was my way forward. And after a year, when I was supposed to come back to Prague, I was actually asked by the professors in England if I would like to stay for another 2 years. And the reason for that was that when I was working in the studios there, it was, I was just so happy to be able to do that. But because Britain typically at that time had much more opportunities for the students than to study art at that level than Czech Republic had, the students often became a bit more relaxed about it. So there would always be a bar very near the university studios, and it happened quite a few times that there were visitors going around the university, and the professors needed to show that their students working, but a lot of them were in the bar. And Fürstová was just sitting there, with my head down. And I just loved it so much. And this way, I won another 2 years there, which was just absolutely wonderful. I was so grateful. And at the end of the 2 years, I applied to study at the Royal College of Art, and I was accepted. There was another hurdle, and that was that the fees were £16,000 because we weren't members of European Union then. And I remember during the interview, I was asked, how am I going to get the money? And I said, just please offer me the place and I'll get it. And they did. And then I managed to sell artwork that I haven't made yet. I offered 6 etchings in return of £1,000, and I somehow pieced it together. So that was very, very lucky. And when I was at the Royal College, I really started experimenting with printmaking processes. This is printing silver on black background. And it was under the guidance of a wonderful man, Alan Smith, who is here. He's an icon of printmaking in England. And you were my teacher there, and I'm so grateful for everything you taught me. So another piece really kind of starting to impress fabric into etchings as well. This is called Metamorphosis, the other one onto Genesis. After I finished at the Royal College of Art, I briefly returned to the university where I studied University of Gloucestershire just for 1 year. And during the year, a wonderful new post was advertised. It was at the Cheltenham Ladies College, which is one of the kind of most known private schools here in Britain. And they have wonderful resources. And the role of artist in residence that was advertised involved, or kind of the description of the post was that the artist had to inspire the girls and also carry on with their own work. So I did that, and I was just really so happy there, and produced. The college supported me when I took residency in Venice. So this is Venice Diaries. So you can see a lot of experimenting. And I set up etching studio for the girls. This is printing on glass. And there was, once again, the kind of the magic of etching was working, because I would have a lot of students coming to me saying, I can't draw at all. We can't, I just don't know how to do it. And I said, look, take this metal plate, draw something on it, and we'll process it, we'll etch it in acid, and we'll print it. And usually something really wonderful happened. And I started to get more and more students, and it was really exciting times. And from being appointed for a year, I ended up staying for 8 years, and I built even larger etching studios. So it was a very, very exciting time. And everything was going brilliantly on a professional level. I started exhibited abroad, I started getting work at galleries, but my personal life was kind of taking a bit of a downturn. And that lovely man that I mentioned at the beginning, Marcus, I've been with him since I was 19. I came from Czech Republic here following that love, but we were growing apart. And at the end, we left, the relationship broke totally, and I spent a couple of years in this turmoil, if you like, and I did a lot of artwork about, searching for who I am. And here, this is called Annunciation. You can see that the central figure here, she is missing. She should be staying there. She should be on her chair. She should be there to be announced to, and she's just lost in some labyrinth. Then gradually making self-portraits where the background is cut out and kind of in the shape of birds and flies away till she totally disintegrates. And here this is just one example from a series of works called Portrait with Gun, and here as a woman and as an artist. And you can see that in this portrait she is not being looked at, she returns the gaze. She sort of challenges you. So her gaze is her weapon, and she's also brandishing this this pistol, but it's not supposed to be describing an act of violence. It's more to demonstrate her strength. And it was at this time that I met another wonderful young man called Quentin, and he was an artist. And at this time we really, we were very close on so many different levels, but we often really discussed art together and what it means to be an artist. And one day he asked me a really important question. He asked, so are you an artist or are you a teacher? And I actually didn't have to think too hard. I knew that I was an artist, and I decided to leave Cheltenham Ladies College. Now, Cheltenham Ladies College was so comfortable, so palatial, so beautiful, huge studios, beautiful cakes every break, just absolutely amazing. And within a matter of days, I found myself in a real sort of Dickensian factory falling apart. This is somewhere else. This is not in the factory because I don't even have a photo of it. But I would draw with hot water bottle on my lap and with gloves, and it was awful. But actually, suddenly, I really loved it, because for the first time in my life, I was, having this agency. I was actually starting to run my first business, my modest business, and I was making a living as an artist. So this is one of the works that I have made in that studio and transferred it into a cleaner space for photography. And at that time I was starting to feel, I was in my 30s, and I was starting to feel that I would like to have a family. And after finally persuading Quentin, we had our first son was born, Leo, and a shock of my life came, because when I talk about the love at the beginning of my life, and I just honestly thought that to have a child is just this joy for everyone. It's just wonderful, and my plan was to empty the acid bath, to have the acid bath empty and put the child in there, and draw in my studio. But our little Leo, he was crying so much. I don't know what was the problem, but it was very, very tricky, and I didn't have any sleep, so I was really suffering, and it was going it wasn't going very well. And I remember distinctly one day when he was 6 months old, I was pushing the pram with him, and I received a phone call from my agent, Fraser Scott, and he sounded very, very excited on the phone. And he said, "Míla, do you know that Coldplay have been collecting your work for a few years now? They want you to do album cover." And I thought, oh my God, this is incredible, and how will I do this? But very soon I found myself in the Coldplay recording studio, and having a dialogue about what we could do together. And because this kind of took a few months, in the meantime I managed to get a nursery space for Leo, so I had about 4 hours every day, and I could start working on the artworks for Coldplay. Now again, there has been about 85-minute film made about the collaboration. There's so much to say. I almost don't know what to choose. I think that one of the very significant things for me personally on this collaboration was that prior to that, I would never really take commissions. I felt that when I'm making artwork, it needs to come from inside, it needs to be honest, because only when it's so heartfelt, it communicates properly to people. And I when I met Chris Martin and the band, Chris already had some ideas about swimming, sea lions, and I was trying to please him because I wanted this commission, but it just wasn't going very, very well. And there was an amazing moment where Phil Harvey, who is the art director and best friend from childhood of Chris Martin, decided that they should fill their entire recording studio with my artworks. So they put it everywhere, in the recording studio, in the kitchen, in the toilet. There was just no escaping Míla. And they lived with me. And that was just such a sort of act of trust. And it was wonderful, and that's actually what sort of sealed it for me, because we were opening to each other as artists, and eventually Chris was drawn to this artwork called Blue Dream 3, which features angel with wings that are woven from human stories. And then the band trusted me with the music and lyrics for ghost stories, and they gave it to me before anybody else from the world had it, and I was just listening and drawing what I heard. So I'll quickly take you through some images from the era. So this is for the single Magic. That's for single True Love, which is different color variations they've actually published. Single Midnight, and single Sky Full of Stars. And this is the sort of the amazing thing that happened. As I said, the contrast from holding that baby, not sleeping enough, to suddenly within 2 years to this happening. I just couldn't believe that this was actually happening to me. They were projecting a lot of other artworks as well on these huge concert halls. And this is how, when the reporters came to take photo, and this is the reality of it. So during the time of working on this project, because it took 2 years, I became pregnant again with my daughter, Viola. They called her album baby, and she was born literally kind of a couple of weeks before the album was published. And here I am just remaking the last single, True Love. After Coldplay collaboration finished, I suddenly had so many amazing offers to make artwork for very famous bands, but I just felt that I'd given so much into it, that it was a 2-year relationship, and I just wanted time for myself, so I refused all these commissions, and I focused on the new thing in my life, the new chapter of motherhood. And there's few works from that series, so you can see combining being a mum and being an artist. Here again. Here I'm kind of starting to cut into the etching paper. This is like a 3D image in many layers. So it's quite hard to photograph it, but in an actual sort of gallery environment, it's more sort of has more shadows in it. Now, for me, being a mother has brought a totally different dimension into my art, and I was often thinking back about, when my career was starting to go well, there was plenty of people who were persuading me that I shouldn't really have children, that for women artists it's hard to have children, it's hard to combine it, and I'm really, really cross at people who say that, because I think that, first of all, a female artist has to be herself, and if that involves being mother, it may not involve that for everyone, but for me it did. And I think that when you do something with love, yes, it is hard work, but it doesn't feel that way. The love makes it less hard. So here I'm choosing which type of saint I'll be for that day. Brushing Viola's hair. Here, this is actually at the beginning of the series, it's kind of the journey to the motherhood. And the final one of that series it's a huge piece, about 2 by 2 meters, made from six panels, kind of portrait of an artist, myself in the studio, where everything, the art and the motherhood all is combined. Now I'm going to skip forward very quickly because we don't have much time, but it was 2019, and it was the first time I started to come out away from the children. I think that those posters of Coldplay that they were out in London, I had never seen them in reality because I was holding the babies at home. But in 2019, they already were older. I could come out, and I came to London to the residence of the ambassador in Hampstead, and there was a party speeches. There was about 70 people kind of listening to speeches, and totally randomly, I was standing next to a nice man called Mike Tate, who I later on learned that he was a director of Yantar Publishing, and he told me that he just published Kytice, which is one of the iconic works of Czech literature from 1850s. He translated it into English, and in New York it became one of the best-selling books. And I was absolutely fascinated because this book by Karol Jaromír Erben is kind of based on Slavonic myths, it really kind of deals with Czech mentality. It's really, really beautifully written, very lyrical, but also there is a big element of horror in it, a little bit like Edgar Allan Poe. But I thought, I read this as a 10-year-old girl, and at school we kept reading it because it was a compulsory read, and I thought that the book is so profoundly Czech and written in such a complex poetry. I couldn't believe that it could be translated into English and have justice done to it. But there was a wonderful translator, Susan Reinhold, who really delivered beautiful translation. So there's a couple of... and then Mike Tate asked me if I would illustrate the book, which initially I refused it because I was worried about the element of horror in it. That even children get killed. It's really it's quite harsh sometimes. But then COVID came, and I was watching the horror that was unfolding in the streets of Britain, and suddenly I wanted a more familiar horror that I know from childhood. So I went about it by choosing. There was about 3 ballads that ended up well, so I chosen those first, and then I illustrated about the others. I just got a couple of examples for you to see. This is Wojník, Water Goblin. The one before was Treasure. And after, I'm just going to go through very, very quickly now. The next book that came now, there was Euromedia Publishing from Czech Republic already kind of connected to this project. And the visionary director there, Antonín Kočí, came up with an idea that I should illustrate 3 of these iconic books. This is Babička, the grandmother. I had an absolutely wonderful time doing that. And I've got all the books here for you to see later if you want to. This is the main character, Viktorka. This is Morana, the Death of Winter. And this is just children playing in the garden. And the final in the series of book is it's one of the best known romantic long poem in the Czech literature. Absolutely, absolutely beautifully written. But I was supposed to read it as a child, and I somehow didn't. And then I agreed to illustrate it, and it was really, out of these 3 books, that was the first time that I was sitting at home, holding my phone, about to call the publisher, because I thought I can't do that. This book is very, very dark. So it starts with a young woman waiting for her lover at the edge of a beautiful lake, only to learn that he has been captured and he's sentenced to be executed the following day. So it's very, very dark. And I really struggled through it, and I can talk about it later during our discussion maybe. I'm going to skip through. This is how she's waiting for her lover, and this is before his execution. Now, my most current work is that there's 2 projects. This is one of them, a large architectural piece for street for Marylebone Street. And it was absolute privilege to be selected to make piece to commemorate Queen Charlotte's Maternity Hospital, which is now, the building doesn't exist, it's a now hotel. And I collaborated with these really inspiring, great architects, Shepherd and Robson, who helped to lead me through the project. This is artwork made on maybe about 5 different etching plates. It's about 150 centimeters tall in reality, but it was translated into an object which is 12 meters high, and it is now in Marylebone. And in a way, this was such a thing that, you know, this was really something that touched my heart. I was so pleased that I could make artwork that every day commemorates such an important thing that women do, you know, a serious work that talks about women and their strength and giving birth and looking after the children. And I was just really, really grateful to have this privilege, and I'm so pleased now to be seeing it in Marylebone, because it also used to be the path that I took to Royal College, so it kind of closes the circle for me. And the last, oh yeah, this is how it looks installed. And this is my most recent artwork, which became the main piece at my current exhibition in Hradec Králové, which is my hometown. It's slightly small in reality, but still very, very big. You can see it from many panels. It's called When the Universe Whispers. And I've had just absolutely amazing homecoming after leaving Czech Republic, you know, over 20 years before that, as somebody who wasn't even accepted at the university. There was group of curators and architects putting together this absolutely fantastically designed show, and I've been so happy to have that. I've got a short video showing just a minute showing showing the private view of this exhibition, which by the way continues in Hradec till the end of October, and I'll be delighted if you could see it, if any of you have a journey there. And there's also a quick 3-minute video from Marylebone. I'll play it for you now. Today is the first time I'm seeing the artwork realized. And when I was a student here at the Royal College of Art, I used to go down this road, and it's just amazing for me to have actual artwork on a beautiful, stunning building like this.
Our vision with the artwork and the building was always that we were going to present a blank canvas for an artist, particularly an artist of Míla's stature, where we had enough faith and we could subsume our ego enough to say, this is yours, you take it, you run with it. And it's that level of what I think is true collaboration, where there's a level of trust. We had to trust Míla to create a vision working with our building, but she also had to trust us to be able to deliver that vision technically.
But I have never ever made work like this before. I normally work on a smaller scale, maybe up to 2 meters, because my technique is very ancient. I work with technique of etching from 15th century. I work on metal plates, which I etch, and everything, all my work is really, really sort of intimate on a small scale. And obviously with this we had to translate the work into this larger scale, but what I really love about it, that it kind of seemed to maintain the intimacy of it. You know, you can see every single line that I made with my hand. You can see the kind of the sensitivity of the wiping of the ink from the plate. So in that way, it's very personal still, and it maintains it in a larger scale too.
The aluminium panels that the artwork is printed on only are produced up to a certain size, so the original artwork was a seamless piece, but we then needed to look at how we could integrate joins, again, trying to make that seam as invisible as possible for the final result.
Well, when I was a little girl, I used to like wandering around my town, Hradec Králové, and there is a lot of artworks on the buildings, and there's a great one in the railway station. And I always loved imagining what these artwork may mean. And with this artwork, it kind of holds a story, if you like. So I would like, you know, everybody to maybe wonder about what the story is, maybe to pause, look at it,
for longer. You know, I would like it to become part of the Londoner's life and, you know, kind of really see the story of the maternity hospital in it, but maybe also their own story.
I think Míla, from the get-go, understood what the scope and the brief was, and she understood that there was a potential to transcend just producing something that hangs on a building, but to tap into the layers and of memory and history and the built forms and London, and not just London itself, but a very particular part of London, which is this corner of Marylebone Road and Old Marylebone Road. And again, to do it with a level of care and craft and elegance and eloquence that might not have been quite as easily achieved with other forms of art or by another artist, to be honest.
Thank you very much. This has been very exciting and wonderful, sharing this personal but also, I think, artistic journey, and it's opening so many questions. And therefore, without any further ado, I would like to invite Diana, right over here. If you can please join us for the first initial few discussions here, and then we're going to open it for the Q&A.
Thank you very much. Hello, testing. So as you can see, I've prepared lots of questions for Míla, but I will not make her answer all of them. So Míla and I have known each other for about 20 years, and we share a lot of, history as friends, but also as Czech women who came to UK in the 1990s and who basically came here in pursuit of education. Because for some of you, it might be the case that you know that it was quite hard to get into university at the time, even for people with really good results, really good grades. And actually, eventually, many of us realized our dreams of doing what we love abroad, and many of us stayed. And so that's how we know each other. And and I'm very lucky to have a lovely friend like Míla, who's very creative and who inspires others, and who creates this wonderful art for us to enjoy. So if you don't mind, Míla, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Now, would you like to talk more about what it's like to be a woman artist, or would you like to rather give us maybe some information which might be quite interesting for people about logistics and all the graft that goes into your work? What do you think the audience would appreciate?
I would like to make no decision.
So I'll decide. I'll ask a little bit of both. So actually earlier I spoke to Míla and I asked her, do people ever ask you how much effort, how many hours actually do you put into, say, an A3 print? Like from the moment you decide that you want to draw something, how long does it take before it can hang on a gallery wall? I think people very often underestimate how much work, how much time.
That's true. I think that sometimes, because of the detailed nature of the drawing, people would ask how long did it take to draw, but I think that hardly anyone knows that there is all this sort of alchemical process with the plate involved, and that of course takes a long time, you know, so it literally starts with a company delivering my metal. They deliver it, and then we try to unwrap it outside my house. We realize it's a wrong thickness, so it has to be returned. Then I wait for another load. Then I come. Then I sort of drag it upstairs to my studio, and unroll it. And I think it's about, I think Alan would know, it's about 3 meter rolls of metal sheet, and my printing press is about 60 centimeters wide. So that's the maximum size of plate I can use. So I go there and I cut it with scissors. Well, since I'm married to Quentin, who is an architect by training, he gave me a better tool, but I'm usually kind of so, you know, I just want to get on with it so quickly that I just take kitchen scissors and I start cutting this metal, and there's sometimes a lot of blood and stuff. So there's, you know, it's like a properly hardcore thing.
It's kind of physical work.
It is physical, yeah. And then it kind of goes, you know, goes on. Then I, you know, have to prepare the plate, how I showed you here, and then the drawing itself happens. But also, I need to mention the fact that, like, during the drawing, I have to think. You know, I don't know. I'm the type of artist who doesn't like to know what's going to happen. I think that actually keeps me more glued to it. That I don't know. I often get told at my exhibitions that I'm so patient, and someone behind me is Quentin really laughing, because he knows that I'm the least patient person I know, and he knows. And the way I stay with it is I start drawing, I don't know what's going to happen, I want to, you know, it's almost like I want to remember the kind of the future of the plate. And because I draw on a black plate with silver line, it's almost like sort of Ariadne in silver labyrinth, you know, I'm looking what I'm going to draw, I'm not planning it, and I am allowing myself to be surprised. So all this takes a long time, and then obviously it goes to the acid, and then it's printed, and then I print it, and then I cry because it doesn't come out like I wanted to, and it's like that, so it does take a long time.
And it's very organic, and what I like is that you, like many people, be familiar with Míla's work, and you know that there's motifs that are recurring. So we know that there are things like the doves and the wings and the crinolines, but there's ovaries. You know, if you look hard enough, you will find laptops, and I love the fact that they keep coming back. And I always wonder that there's something that you really, really want to draw that you haven't done yet in your prints. Is there anything that comes to your mind?
Oh gosh. Well, I think so. Basically, I have this big, you know, my one whole wall, or maybe 2 walls in my studio are covered with this board, and I stick images to it that just kind of catch my attention, you know, on the way to London or in Czech Republic. It's totally random, and I don't like having to explain to myself why they attract me. I just think that if they do, there is a reason. And maybe 3 years later, I use them in the images. So I'm kind of very open to, you know, this most recent piece that with the deer whispering to me, you know, when the universe whispers. So it's the same sort of anatomy of creative process. I allow the universe to whisper to me, to tell me the images to use, and then I use them, kind of with no reason sometimes.
It's quite a spiritual way to actually express it. I find that your work is quite spiritual, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, I just feel in our life, you know, we have intuition for a reason. You know, it's not like, oh, I feel something, let's ignore it. It's, you know, I don't ignore what I feel. I try to capture it, and then what I like later on, that very often it comes to me, you know, people come to me during my exhibitions, and they say, oh, I really respond to this. This means something to my life, and in this way, the art communicates, you know, beautifully without words, through images that are universal and that are common, and they, you know, they kind of embrace people because they recognize it.
Mm-hmm. Like one of the things that I wanted to ask was also, so people very often refer, I think I can't help thinking it's in a slightly patronizing way to your work as feminine. How does that make you feel?
Well, I love being female. I think feminine is good. I think it's really about the connotation, about how the feminine is read. And very interestingly, this show that I have in Hradec now, in Czech, it's called Taj jemnosti, which we translated as delicate matters, but it's not exact translation really. It is about tenderness and about mysteries. And I am so glad that the curator of this show really picked up the kind of the gentleness and the tenderness in my work, and that is kind of put into this grand, amazing, iconic building, and the gentleness is celebrated as a strength. It's, you know, gentleness is strength, femininity is strength. You know, there is things that historically we think are weak, but you know, it's like water. Water is strong.
Women are strong.
Women are strong.
And also, like, I mean, just like you described the process, it's actually very physical. I mean, it's, you know, you have to bring quite a lot of strength, I suppose, and also it's quite a lot of chemistry, quite a lot of science.
Exactly. Yeah, I would now like to show you my
It's
muscles.
not it's not a girly thing to do.
No, it's not. No, and I like that, and I think that's, you know, sometimes in contemporary art, that whole thing. If something is physical, if you do something with your hands, it therefore can't be intellectual. You know, it can't be contemporary. And I hate that. I think that, you know, things we do with our hands are things that we do from love. You know, and it's so important. I've recently heard this wonderful quote by Saint Teresa of Avila, and she says, I'm probably not going to say exactly, I think she says something like, God has no hands in this world but yours. And whether it's God or whether it's universe, it's, you know, we have these hands and we tend to our children with them. So I am determined to make my artwork with the hands. Because I think that it's, you know, something is communicated very, very directly like that. And I really don't like the opinion that if you touch something, it's feminine or too gentle or not valid, not intellectual. I think it's the opposite.
It's like your thoughts and ideas made tangible almost, right?
Exactly.
Go from your mind and your heart into your hands.
Exactly.
But I like, as your friend, I do know that there have been some voices, and they've been typically male voices, sort of suggesting that maybe you should experiment with different medium, right? There's sort of that you should that perhaps painting was more glamorous or more exciting and more prestigious, and I personally really like what you do. But how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? I mean, I'm glad you resisted, but you're tempted.
I was tempted because obviously as a young artist you're looking for the right path to take, and you believe these established men of art, and but the problem is here, I think that, you know, when I really thought about it retrospectively, I didn't think that these men actually looked at what I was doing. So I thought, you know, it's very, very important to, you know, I thought as a young woman to be part of an art scene. And I was hoping to navigate my way into it. At a certain point, I just thought, actually, I'm just too busy making art. I can't navigate art scene. I'm not going to wait till I'm invited to some table. I'm going to make my own table, and that's, you know, that's what I did.
I don't know how much time
Yeah,
do you want to
I
take
think
some
we
questions
can.
from
No,
the
I think
audience?
we can continue this discussion for quite a while, but just listening what you have been saying. I think the etching is one of very few kind of artistic endeavors which might be the AI resistant, you know, as you were discussing the music of films, but the technology, I can see that might be replacing the wonderful craftsmanship and senses and art, everything that you put into that. But perhaps having said that, if we can open it as the time is running by to any questions which you might have.
I was hoping you were going to.
Hi, Míla. You were asked how long it takes to make an A3 etching. Surely it actually begins many years before, when you're forming the images. Sketchbooks full of different images, and suddenly there's the moment where you know you want to put some of them together. So it's not a period of time, it's a lifetime.
That's beautifully said. I really feel like that, and I think that's one of the reasons that when I show the images of the forest and the river, I feel it actually all comes from there, and I, return to it.
And how do you put a price on that?
It's priceless.
Thank you, Alan.
There's a piece of art you've done with a fox, with you sitting on a chair and a fox on the other chair, which I love, because I love foxes. I just wondered if there's a story behind that.
Yes.
Piece.
Yeah, God, how do you know that one? Yes, so there is, a young woman sits and she stares at the fox very directly, and they are in this sort of internal dialogue together, and I call that piece inspiration, and a little bit like what I was saying just now, I feel that for my inspiration I have to be so still, and I need to look somewhere very, very, very deep, and like eyes of fox, they come at night, they are kind of mysterious creatures. We have foxes in our garden. We had 5 little foxes during COVID, so I just find them magical, and I just feel that they hold secrets, and this is almost like hypnotizing the fox, and there's the moment, it really for me is the moment of inspiration, that something arrives to you, something is given to you by the universe through the eye of the fox. It's about absolute quietness and concentration and looking into something very, very beautiful.
This is possibly less of a question, more of a comment, that it's interesting that your work seems to be still very much Slavic as a celebration of way of our lands. And I'm just wondering, because you've lived here for 20 years, how far you think, and you probably may not even know the answer, how far you've been influenced by being outside the Czech Republic and being in Britain.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, it's so interesting. I think, coming back to what I said earlier, I think it's those kind of very deep first memories that kind of, I'm made of, and I think my work definitely is different here than it would be in Czech Republic, but maybe it's the question of perspective. Maybe it's because I have a freedom to look at myself, having stepped outside of the place, almost clarifies my vision of it, and I like looking back, celebrating it, but obviously I do like looking forward as well, and as like the series like Motherhood, or working with Coldplay, I don't think they have like a Slavonic influences, but somewhere where I go really, really deep, the Slavonic influences are inevitably there, but I like to celebrate them.
I'd actually like to add something to that. So again, like I remember from one of Míla's exhibitions, there was a book where people left messages for you, and I actually remember to this day what my partner, who writes music among other things, wrote in that book, because I was a bit jealous. And he wrote, "Oh, Míla, your work is so beautiful. When I see your prints, I hear music." And actually, when I sort of read it, I immediately thought of Dvořák's songs that my old mother taught me, which are very much about what our parents have taught us. And that's the music which will ultimately determine what we ourselves will write or hear in our hearts. And I feel that, yes, you say that you really love the Czech illustrations, and we've got a really strong animation and illustration tradition in the Czech Republic. And you very much, like the Czech nature, which is different to nature here in Britain. And I feel also one element which I particularly like in your work is the architecture. There are all these castles in the air, all these buildings which are sort of composites of many beautiful sites. Some of them I even recognize. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a piece of this place, and this is a piece of this place. Did you ever think of being an architect?
I think to grade This is really funny for me because I have, but I really can't often deal with the reality. I mean, I have to say that when working with Shepherd and Robson architects on the Marylebone project, I just was so in awe with them that they are such fabulous artists, but they can also make things stand properly. It doesn't fall. Everything that I make is just absolute no rules. I have no rules. And I think that I'm probably in the only industry that you don't have to have any rules. You know, everything falls. So I would love to be an architect, but there would be a lot of injured people and worse. And but thank you for asking.
Actually, I'd add to that. I remember like having my conversation with Míla a long time ago, and I think that was after your Venice diaries. There's quite a lot of like three-dimensional objects here. They're almost objects, aren't they? They're sort of. And I remember being like got quite frustrated. She was like, and I'll translate it into English. I mean, she said it in Czech, but she was like, I just don't know. Sometimes I kind of have this vision, and I want it done, and I don't know how to do it, and it's just this whole. How do you construct it and how do you suspend it? And I want it floating, and it was so sweet to see. And then she told me like, so I found this and that, and then I tried, and then it falls apart, and I'm like, oh god damn it, you know. And it was just really sweet to hear, like that whole sculptural element and that fact that you want to capture a dream really in a box. It was really sweet. I liked it.
So basically, I don't like gravity, and I don't have to respect it in my work.
Yeah, no sugar.
Yeah, well, I really cannot help to ask perhaps the last questions what we have been just discussing. So what's next? What's the next project? I understand it's not going to be house building. Perhaps it might be a renovation. But what are you working on, or what you will be working on? You can share with us.
Well, I have put so much into preparing my show in Hradec, and now a little bit like after my work with Coldplay, that similarly took 2 years. I really feel I want to go back to myself, and you know, I'm in the next stage of my life now. I'm older, and I just want to see what it is that's happening to me. So I want to do that, and I'm hoping to expand my studio. All my works for Coldplay, or all these works actually, I have a nice studio to draw in, but for my printing room, I have a little laundry. So some works done after they're printed, they can't even fit. It's so. It's so. I honestly I have had people practically fainting when they saw the conditions that I work in. So I'm proper Cinderella like this, and it's time now to have a proper studio. So I'm in a process of hopefully getting a bigger house. What I want to do is I want to have the studio as a part of the home, because I like to combine the family and the work, continue like that. So hopefully when I have a bigger studio, who knows, I'd like to do bigger things.
Yes, well, it sounds as a plan, so we really cannot wait. What the bigger projects will be coming from the new studios in the new house. Well, anyhow, thank you very much. It's been a really pleasure being with us this evening and sharing so many exciting stories and lessons. So thank you. Thank you all for joining us, and we still might continue with Míla some informal discussions here over a glass of wine. There are also, we forgot to mention, the wonderful books that Míla illustrated and the latest catalog from Hradec Králové, so please stay around for a few more minutes. Thank you and have a wonderful summer.
Thank you.
You too, also.